Hi, Ashleigh. Great to have you here today. We're here to talk about what does good care look like. We met recently, didn't we? Well, one of your LDA conferences,
We did.
which I have to say, I've said this to you a couple of times, but I think it was the most powerful conference I've been to, mainly because it felt real. It felt like there were real life stories. It was very down to earth in the way that it communicated to everybody. And I think the messaging as well was really powerful. Personally and, professionally, I think the messaging was really strong. On that note, you are Transforming Care Director at Catalyst Care Group. You have a number of other jobs. One of those I've already mentioned. You're a trustee of that foundation. You are an LD nurse by background, co-founder of the LDA Commissioners Network, an advisory council member for social care nursing advisory councils as well.
Yes, it's a mouthful. Yeah.
There's more. Board clinical advisor for Care and Support West. Still doing that. Part of the Citizen Network, and an associate for Self-Directed Futures. First question then, how on earth do you fit all of that in?
A lot of coffee.
Yeah.
A lot of coffee. But I think when you look at each of those organisations and what they give back to social care, what they give back into nursing, and you're working with such passionate people, it actually is a lot easier to juggle everything, because you know that in every conversation you're having and every interaction you're having, there is that opportunity to make a difference. So it's a lot. There are many, many hats, and it also gives you the opportunity to see our care sector through many different lenses as well.
And I guess they all closely link, don't they, in different ways. Okay, I think that list on its own probably qualifies you to answer the question. What does good care look like? So maybe we'll start with that and say, from your position, how you've seen, I'm sure, care delivered in all shapes and sizes throughout all of those different roles and hats. What for you are the core fundamentals of what good care is?
Well, I think it's very, very simple. For me, having seen different environments, different settings, different approaches, the thing that it always comes back to for me is about, us being able to be human and give someone the space and the compassion to express themselves as a human. I think sometimes we can be very, very prescriptive about, this is what good care looks like. It looks like a great care plan. It looks like all the risk assessments are done. It looks like all of these boxes are checked, right? And you do need governance to be able to provide safe care. But the thing that underpins all of that is your heart. Care doesn't come from the head, it comes from the heart. And that came from my mum. I grew up in Zimbabwe, so I only moved to the UK when I was 14 or 15. And I'd spent my childhood watching my mum as a leader of a local nursing home out in Zimbabwe, where the number one cure for everything was a little product called Zambuk, and it was a paste, right? There were no fancy medications and things like that, but the thing that I saw make the biggest difference was the love and compassion and care and that came from watching my mum. And she always used to say to me when I chose to go into nursing, and I used to talk to her about all of these things I had to be aware of and the governance and ticking the boxes and all of that stuff. And she said to me then, and she still says to me now, when she hears me talking about all these technical elements of, positive behavior support or whatever it is, she always says to me, my girl, remember, it comes from the heart, not the head. All of this red tape you've got going on, all of this bureaucracy that happens, none of it matters to the people that are receiving the care from you. So I think good care looks like being able to connect on a human level, do all of the formal things that we are legally required to do, but for those things not to take over from the heart of what you're trying to do alongside someone.
Yeah. Bringing family into it a little bit then. I've heard you talk before and today. We had a good chat, didn't we, earlier with one of the staff members here about her family experiences, which is both quite heartbreaking, but also really impactful, and it was a positive story as well, wasn't it? And the way that she spoke about it and the way you speak about the fundamentals of a good support for people, family is a massive part of that. And I think even I've done it today. I think we have a culture in Britain of when somebody reaches adulthood, their decisions are their own. We have the formality of the Mental Capacity Act, and actually, we almost start putting a distance between the person and their family throughout adult social care. What do you do differently? Why is it so different here? I think we can learn a lot from that model and that kind of approach really to how families are involved in the care.
Oh, I think when you look at, and I can speak for Catalyst, a lot of the people that work within our Catalyst community have been personally impacted by a lot of the big issues that we see out there when it comes to people with a learning disability, autistic people, neurodivergent people, and it becomes personal for them. Um, and I think for you to make a difference, you need to have a purpose, and you need to deeply understand what the issues are, but also come with solutions and ways of working that seek to combat that. And when it comes to a lot of the people that we support, we'll often hear about people being supported on high staffing ratios, so 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, and you think, why does someone need to have 4 people with them all of the time? And everything is put into an assessment that says because of this behavior, everything is kind of medicalized.
Mm.
And I'll give you an example of someone that we've supported for quite some time now. When we first started supporting them, we were told that this person needed a team of 4 support workers with them 24 hours a day. To go out in the van on a drive needed to be 5 people. So we now had a van going out and staff members following behind. But every night when this person's dad came to visit him, he would just go out with his dad in the car, in a tiny little car. What?
Mm. Risk assessment is best, I think, there. Yeah.
And you think, what is it that we are missing? What is it that we can learn from families? What is the magic ingredient? What is it the families are doing that we're not able to do? And I think you're absolutely right. There's this distance and this professional boundary, which absolutely needs to be there, but not at the expense of closeness and humanity and that family bond. Because no matter what we say, no matter what we think, we can be the expert in behavior, but I don't know the person I'm supporting as well as their mum
Mm.
knows them or their sister.
Mm.
It's impossible. So why aren't we pulling families in even closer and giving families a voice and a platform to be able to set the policy and the way that we care for and support people? So I think that's what we've learned over time is the most successful teams we have that work with people that have been some people in hospital for decades. When we start with the family,
Mm.
it's impossible
Mm.
to go wrong
Mm.
because you're being led by the family and you're supporting someone alongside one another. So you're getting the best bits of both.
Yeah. And it's a shared it no man is an island, are they? So it's a shared sense of care as well, then, isn't it? It's not that responsibility is handed over to the state or to the care provider who's delivering the support. Actually, this is about recognizing that we all work in communities, in families, and that's surely the most important part of what we do, is making sure we maintain that.
Absolutely.
Mm. Okay, thinking then kind of back into your early career as a learning disability nurse, you had quite an impactful event, I would say, in terms of maybe building that attitude. And I think family comes into play here as well, because I imagine, and I've read, that a lot of the situations in this hospital ATU setting was about that distance from family and the fact that family weren't really entering into that environment, which actually led to a lot of the problems. So you actually worked at Winterbourne, didn't you, and were a whistleblower of that situation. How do you think that experience has led you to where you are now, and has, what lessons did it teach you?
Oh gosh, what
Quite a lot.
lessons didn't
It's
it
taught
teach
us
me?
it's taught me a lot of lessons, so I imagine for you being in that scenario,
Yeah.
it's even more so.
Before I qualified as a learning disability nurse, I'd been a support worker for 7 years, and I'd worked in a residential service, and I'd had the best mentorship from the registered manager at the time, who really, really showed me how to connect with people. And he was a rule breaker. So I'm very, very grateful because I got to watch how he broke the rules.
Yeah.
And for the benefit of the people that we supported. So he is the person that inspired me to go and become a learning disability nurse, along with a lot of the people that I supported. And when I took my first job at Winterbourne, it was a local hospital, kind of, I knew the management team. I thought, I know that there's a bit of a reputation with this hospital, but I'm gonna go in and we're gonna fix it. It's
Yeah.
gonna be great. It's gonna be fine. And I think what I learned, and I'd never worked in secure services before, the first thing that struck me was just how regimented everything had to be in a hospital environment, and how many boundaries and restrictions were in place.
Mm.
What I realized probably 2 or 3 years after Winterbourne happened, was that people don't go into care to do a bad job. No one goes and decides to work in care because they want to create a closed culture. These cultures develop unintentionally over time. And what I learned was that when you focus on the team, when you focus on the core people that are going to be delivering that care, the outcome naturally becomes better care for the people that we are providing
Mm.
care with and to. So I think that was one of the biggest learnings, was that, these cultures can form unintentionally, and unless you are extremely intentional with the culture that you're going to build, um, you run the risk of falling into those same patterns.
Mm. So I guess you've taken that experience with you in terms of what was next for you, in terms of the work that you do now. So do you want to explain kind of the role of Catalyst and some of its core aims, I suppose, in terms of how you're supporting people away from ATUs, away from hospital settings now?
Yeah, sure. So leaving Winterbourne View, I was kind of at a crossroads, and I hadn't expected to experience a secure environment in that way. And the first thought that came into my mind was, oh my gosh, I have just trained for 3 years as a learning disability nurse, and if it's like this, I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Right, that was the first thought. And we often hear about people who will leave care to go into retail or hospitality because they've had a negative experience in a care role. But what it actually did for me was the opposite. When it comes to social justice and human rights, I've always some things that I've always been, and you know, everyone in the care sector is very
Mm.
passionate about. I thought it's very easy to go out there and blow the whistle and talk about all the negative things, and talk about how awful care is. But that makes no difference to anyone. If anything, it's a negative, right? And it
Mm.
pushes people away from coming into the care sector. It's very easy to stand up there and talk about how awful things are. What's not so easy, but what's a million times more impactful, is being able to say, okay, so, we've gone out there, we've blown the whistle, we've exposed this issue, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
There's a very, very big difference between words and actions.
Yeah.
And, you hear lots of words sometimes in our sector, and it's like, okay, that's great. It's a very, very valid point. What are you personally going to do to take ownership of it?
Yeah.
And that was meeting Trevor, our chief exec, and having a conversation quite early on. Something that we ask a lot of people, everyone working within our Catalyst organizations, is why do you do what you do? What is your why? What is your purpose? And we're then able to support people to link that purpose with, okay, well, what is it that you could bring into what we do that aligns with your purpose and what we're trying to achieve at Catalyst, which in essence is to provide the most humanized experience for people with a learning disability, autistic people, people who have got enduring mental health challenges, and enable people to get the care and the support that they need, or the treatment that they need, in their own homes. So we've been on a journey over the last 10 years focusing on people who have been in hospital environments ready for discharge for years. Provider can't be found. And, it's people, we last year brought someone home who had been in hospital for 27 years, half of those in long-term seclusion.
It just, you do wonder when you hear those situations, and I've in the work I do, I've seen very similar scenarios. We supported somebody last year who was 20 years in hospital, 17 years of those in seclusion. Like, can you work out how we get to that point? I know that you've done a lot of kind of background work around this, haven't you? And you've got a paper with Chris Watson as well around kind of the build up to this scenario. So having unpicked all of that, does it tell you how we break that cycle and how we change those things?
That's a big question.
It is a big question. We've got time for it. That's fine.
So I think over time, we have, again, unintentionally created the conditions for this to happen. And the bottom line, I think, is that we haven't yet created enough community capacity to support the rising numbers of people that need this level of support. And without investment in community capacity, my fear is that we're going to carry on down the same path. When you look at how other countries have approached this, in particular Italy and the Trieste model of care, it was a psychiatrist who came along, Franco Basaglia, back in the 70s. And he made a decision that when he took over this hospital in Trieste, he was just going to unlock all the doors and create this human experience, and people were just going to become part of that community. And he faced barriers and he faced objections, and he had a very close team around him that supported this vision. So now it's very, very rare to come across any sort of mental health hospital in Italy. All of the mental health care is done in the community, in neighborhoods, and it works. Suicide rates have gone down by 75%, over the years. There are real benefits to that. So I think in terms of the long-term pathways for us as a nation, I think there is real value in looking at how neighborhood care can really support enabling people to stay in their own homes and communities. And the Trieste model, I think, is incredibly valuable. When it comes to our approach at Catalyst, and this goes back about 8 or 9 years, I was sitting, as I do quite often, and think, right, how are we going to fix this sector? What are we going to do? And what are the real issues, and what could the solutions be? And I came back to something I learned when I first started working as a support worker back in the LADAF days.
Yeah.
We're talking 25 years ago.
Yeah, I was there.
And all I heard about was consistency and continuity. Consistency and continuity is very, very relevant. That's what we need as humans, naturally, biologically. And I looked at this situation where we have people in hospital in a very clinical environment, and we're trying to get people home. But what we're doing in that transition is we're changing someone's team, someone's family, who they've, in some cases, who they've known for years and years, and we're replacing an entire team. And to top it off, we're going to put this person in a house that they've never seen before, and then we're going to hope for the best, right?
We're, more than that, we're going to expect progression and development and satisfaction and contentment.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because that's what we see as the right thing to do, again, with all the best intentions. But what this person then ends up missing out on is actually all the tribal knowledge that people have picked up over the years in hospital, because there is good care and support that happens in hospital
Yeah.
too. So I remember sitting down and thinking, so how are we going to do this? We can't change both things. So let's, if we can just change one thing. And so the bridging support model was like a scribble on,
Okay, yeah. Where all good things start.
where all good things
Yeah.
start. I was like, right, if we just keep the team the same and get the team to create the bridge from hospital into the community and then become that person's long-term team, then surely we've got a better chance of people being able to stay home.
Yeah.
And over the years, I think what makes me smile a little bit inside is people say, oh, it's a great model. It's really, really innovative. And you're like, it's just basics. It's just, I want to be with the people that know me best and that understand how I work and what's important to me and what my purpose is and who my family are. And, it's just basic levels of care. Yes, it does work. And I think it should just be the norm, really. Or actually, what I think the norm should be is that when someone becomes unwell, let's not take them out of the environment that they call home, where we know medically, clinically, that people have got a much better chance of recovery. Why can't people have that treatment at home?
At
Because
home. Yeah.
I think when you have, a team in place with the right skills and the right knowledge, it can happen. And it's never going to be easy. We're working with people and we're all human. We're people ourselves.
Yeah. We all have good days and we all have bad days. And I think that you've said it definitely in front of me. That's kind of part of your approach as well with the team, isn't it? That actually we're not looking for perfection here. What we're looking for is a realistic human experience. And I think what I've heard you say as well today is the difference, I guess, between putting somebody in a structure and in a system and the human element of what we do is actually that you say it very clearly on your website. It's it's humanizing care, and I guess that's what you mean by that is actually we're not moving someone from place to place. It's about starting with them, and we can call that what we like. We've had person-centered, haven't we? Person-led, but actually I think it runs a little bit deeper than that. Do you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's basic humanity, and I think growing up in Zimbabwe and looking at African culture, there's a concept that you grow up with and you don't even realize what it is. Right? It's called ubuntu, and the direct meaning of ubuntu is I am because we are.
Brilliant.
And there is just an acceptance that everyone is different, and there's a deep respect for people, and people are not sent to go and live in residential care homes and that kind of. People stay within the family sphere and within that home environment in their own communities, and it's just the way that things are done. And I think it's that understanding of I am because we are. So it's important to me, what's important to you, and let's try and get there together. And I think probably one of the most powerful stories I've come across when it comes to the spirit of Ubuntu was a photographer went out to Africa, and he was meant to be taking photos and videos of a tribe that was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And he brought a box of sweets with him. And he said to all of the children that he was filming, right, we're going to run a race. And whoever gets to the end first, whoever wins, is going to get this box of sweets. And the children all were very, very excited, and they all started running. And just before the little girl at the front crossed the line, she stopped. And she waited for all of her friends to get to the line. And they all held hands and they stepped over together. And his mind was blown. He was like, you could have had all those sweets. And her words were, how can I be happy if my friends are sad?
I mean, from the mouth of babes, is I guess that goes back then to what we've been saying about family, about community, but fundamentally about culture, because that is a massive cultural difference, isn't it? About whose responsibility is care. From your position, whose responsibility is it to care?
Everyone.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely everyone.
We're all part of the same community, aren't we? And I guess that links into the neighborhood models as well. Um, we do care naturally for the people around us. And I might pop next door. So I live in a cul-de-sac with a group of bungalows. Myself and my husband have always been involved in social care or youth work or, similar kind of roles, children's homes. And I think maybe because of that innate sense of responsibility for the care of others, we assume the role in our neighborhood, in our little cul-de-sac street, we assume the role of laptop fixer, fooled picker upper, whatever the situation may be. I've got a new mobile phone, I need to, and I think maybe that's where it starts. We know the increasing pressure on our services and what that looks like, but actually, if we were all part of that community and that level of responsibility, do you think we'd see a different um, overall picture, I suppose?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I think having building strong communities is incredibly important. I think it's very, very positive that we're shifting towards neighbourhood models of
yeah.
care within the NHS, within social care. I think that's going to be really, really important. And there's some really good work going on through the Citizen Network as well around looking at citizen capacity. What is it that communities can do for one another? People in their communities know their communities best.
Yeah.
So why aren't we trusting people to be able to deliver that? And why are we othering people with a disability or sending someone 300 miles away to hospital, away from their communities, and almost creating a fear or, I guess maybe even fear of the unknown in some of these communities? Whereas if people and children are exposed to lots of different people, surely levels of acceptance increase naturally.
Yeah, I'm a chair for our local playgroup, and we've noticed this year in particular that we're supporting a lot more autistic children, and other conditions and situations as well that um has made a difference to that group. But my daughter in that year group has just got a better viewpoint, surely, of the difference in people. They're at such a young age that they're so influential, aren't they? So at that point, you can create the culture that says, actually, difference is good, and we're all responsible for this situation, and all those things. They're at a great age. They're so impressionable, aren't they? In terms of demonstrating how to be a community and what that looks like. And it's the good and the bad, as we said earlier. We all have good and bad days, but it's how we approach that and how we look at that. I think that's really key.
Absolutely. And I think in care as well, it's really important to be open and transparent with anyone who's working in a direct support role. There are going to be good days, there are going to be great days, and there are going to be not so great days. And it's about how resilient can we be as a care team to allow that to happen, because no one's perfect. I have bad days too.
Yeah.
The difference is I don't have someone filling in the daily notes saying that I was non-compliant because I didn't take my paracetamol or whatever that looks like. The language is very, very different, and that's a whole other topic,
Yeah.
Amy, when we talk about
Yeah.
language. But acceptance of the fact that we're human and we're going to do this, and it's about whether our care teams have got it in them to stay the course
Yeah.
with a person. And I think that's where one of my biggest learnings has been when it comes to culture is, you instill a culture where people feel valued for the contribution they bring, where people know that it's okay as well as, as a carer or as a nurse to not have a good day. You don't have to be perfect all of the time either. And I think what we're seeing in the sector is a cost of living crisis, a workforce shortage, all of this stuff that's going on, right? And when you strip things back, especially working with people who have got very high levels of need and need very resilient care teams, we're asking people to operate at the top of Maslow's
Yeah.
triangle of that hierarchy of self-actualization. We're saying to people, come and work in a role where you're going to make a huge difference, you're going to impact someone's life positively, you're going to have fun, it's going to be the best time. Yeah, you're going to have not so good days, but you're going to see the difference that you make. So we're giving people this dream, because actually when people are driven to do the right thing, and they're driven but with a strong purpose and a strong why behind what they're doing, it is undoubtedly the best job in the world to work anywhere in social care.
Agreed.
But with the best will in the world, if I'm thinking that at the end of my shift I have to go to a food bank to put food on the table for my young children, am I really able to give the best?
Yeah. It's a good question, isn't it? So we don't, I think we talked before, didn't we, about that we feel that, the rhetoric is we need more money in the system. We know that exists. But is that the only fix? Is that the only thing that we need?
Amy, call me a rebel, but funding is a big issue, obviously. There's no getting away from that. High quality care costs money, because we have to be able to attract people into the sector, because it's the age-old story that, it's better to go and work in a supermarket. You get paid more, there's less responsibility, you go home at the end of the day, don't have to look at your phone again. But I think something that a lot of organizations have maybe seen as a nice to have is culture. I'm on the opposite end. I think culture is not a nice to have. It's a fundamental thing that underpins everything that you do as a provider. It underpins all of the governance stuff that you do. It underpins your people strategy. It underpins your growth strategy as a provider. All of those things. If your culture is not right, then how can you expect your care teams to feel that they're working in an environment that really understands and gets them? And it's all about having a shared purpose, and that's what culture is all about. It's building a shared vision and defining what are the behaviors that we need to see in order to achieve this vision of humanizing health and social care. What are the behaviors that are going to make a big difference, and what are the things that are going to be counterproductive to that?
Yeah.
So
I guess on those good and bad days, then that is the stream that pulls you through, isn't it? So we know if we're aiming for a combined, communal, purposeful goal, then actually the bad days are okay. We can, it's about getting through them, isn't it? And then the good days are really great.
Absolutely. It's about context and perspective and seeing the impact. So whilst as a support worker or as a nurse or as a registered manager, you might think that a day went horribly wrong. You maybe tried something new, you took a positive risk, and it might have backfired a little bit, but you take the learnings from that. It didn't go so well, so the benefit is in the learnings, number one. So what are you going to do differently next time? Because if you don't make mistakes, so we call them marvelous mistakes, we made a marvelous mistake.
I like that.
Because otherwise we're not going to know what the outcome of that would have been. But when you speak to family members where you've gone out, you've tried something different, and then you speak to someone's mum who says to you, she hasn't been able to do that for 4 years, so thank you for trying. It makes it worth it. So I think it's about context and perspective, and consistently feeding back into your team about the impact they're making, and not just, oh, you did a really good job today. Name the behavior, name what it is that you saw in that person, because thank you, saying thank you and giving feedback, the last time I checked, did not cost a penny.
Yeah.
So, we talk about funding and everything else. Sometimes it is just saying thank you and recognizing something specific that someone's done that ties into what their purpose is in working in the care sector and what the organizational
Mm.
purposes.
And then people know what behaviour to repeat as well, don't they? I always say that we learn from our mistakes, but we're inspired by our successes. But if you don't know what that success looks like or what it is, then it's hard to take that through. I think we've covered all sorts of areas today. Well done. In summary, then, if you were going to summarise what you think good care looks like, could you do that in a few sentences?
Gosh, you're full of the big questions today, Amy. Always start from the heart. Yes, you need your head, but you cannot connect with someone on a human level unless you feel it in your heart and you know that the impact that you're going to make on someone. So get clear about that. As a if you're in a leadership position, good care is about looking after the people that are doing the caring, because the natural byproduct of that will be great care for the person that you are responsible for supporting as a provider. Ubuntu, I am, because we're all human at the end of the day, and we can put in as many processes and as much bureaucracy and red tape as we like. The person that's receiving care from you doesn't care
Yeah.
about all of that. It makes absolutely no difference. So start from the heart, look after our carers, look after our nurses, and make sure that people have got what they need and the support that they need to be able to do a great job.
Amazing. Thank you, Ashleigh. Thanks for joining me. It's been a really good conversation.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.